Ash fell from the sky like gray snow, clinging to Eric's worn jacket as he trudged through the silent wreckage of Kalis. The wind sang through the torn hulls of abandoned ships, low and hollow, as if the planet itself mourned the echoes of its past. His boots sank into the fine dust that once had been a city, towers reduced to skeletons of glass, streets swallowed by corrosion. Each breath carried the taste of metal and static, every heartbeat accompanied by the soft hum of decaying machines buried beneath the surface. Somewhere deep below, ancient reactors still pulsed weakly, their dying cores keeping the world dimly alive. Eric adjusted the strap of the survival pack slung across his shoulder. The scanner on his wrist blinked red every few seconds, warning of radiation pockets ahead. He ignored it. The storm rolling across the horizon was worse, a cloud of ionized particles, shimmering faintly with blue light, moving fast. He had to find shelter before it reached him. A narrow fissure in the rock caught his eye, and he ducked inside, scraping his shoulder against the rough metal remnants of a collapsed drone. The air here was warmer, and something faint but distinct reached his ears, a sound that didn't belong in the wasteland. It was a cry. Not mechanical, not wind. Alive. He froze. The light from his wrist device flickered across the floor, illuminating fragments of shattered crystal, then caught on something curved and breathing. His pulse quickened. Lying amidst the wreckage was a small creature, scaled, its wings folded awkwardly beneath its weight, one side of its body burned and oozing silver fluid. The creature's chest rose weakly, and as its eyes fluttered open, he saw a depth of awareness that no wild beast should have. "Easy now," he murmured, his voice barely more than air. He crouched beside it, scanning its vitals. The device sputtered and failed, unable to process the readings. Its biology was far beyond human code. He hesitated, staring at the faint glow pulsing beneath its skin. The heat radiating from its body melted the frost on the ground, leaving circular marks like celestial symbols. When he reached out, the creature flinched but didn't strike. Eric tore a strip from his sleeve, pressing it gently against the wound. The silver blood hissed against the fabric but soon cooled. The creature's eyes, iridescent, shifting between gold and green, met his. Something ancient passed between them, a quiet plea wrapped in pain. He lifted it carefully, surprised by its weight. It was small, yes, but dense, as if its bones were made of star matter. As he carried it toward the cave's deeper shadows, the world outside erupted with electric light. The ion storm had arrived, painting the sky in violent shades of violet and white. Hidden in the storm's glare, far above the mountains, invisible to human eyes, a massive construct floated, half organic, half metallic, shaped like a crown of living flame. Within it, a figure watched him through layers of holographic mist. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting both sorrow and fascination. "He carries her," the queen whispered to the silence around her. "A human, carries my blood." Lightning rippled across the heavens, and the storm swallowed the ruins whole. Inside the cave, Eric shielded the small creature beneath his coat, unaware that every step he took was already being watched by something far older than the stars. Night fell heavy and electric, humming through the planet's fractured crust. Eric woke to the faint vibration of the ground beneath him, a rhythmic pulse that didn't belong to weather or tectonic stirrings. It was mechanical, distant, alive with intention. He tightened his grip around the creature nestled in his coat. Its breathing had steadied, though every exhale carried a shimmer of light that illuminated the cave's walls in ripples of gold. He had never seen anything like it, an organism whose energy was visible, whose heartbeat could alter the very air around them. He reached for his wrist scanner again, adjusting its frequency to biospectral mode. The readings spiked instantly, blinding the interface with cascading data. Genetic anomalies detected. Unknown element signatures. Core temperature unstable. The device hissed, overheated, and died. Eric cursed softly, setting it aside. The creature stirred, opening one eye, a slit of molten color that burned with awareness. For a fleeting second, he thought he heard a sound in his mind, not through his ears, a whisper too faint to form words, like an echo from a dream. Then it faded, replaced by a low rumble that shook the stones above. Outside, the storm was dying, but the horizon glowed with moving lights, search drones, scanning the wasteland. They drifted like luminous jellyfish, silent and methodical. Eric pressed himself deeper into the shadows, heart racing. He didn't know who they belonged to, scavengers, mercenaries, or worse, the Dominion's biological hunters. The dragon shifted again, sensing danger. A faint surge of heat pulsed through his arms, warm but not burning. When he looked down, he saw the wounds on its flank knitting together with threads of living light. The silver blood solidified, forming new scales that gleamed faintly blue. The drones drew closer. Eric saw their red sensors cut through the storm's haze, scanning for motion. One passed directly above the cave entrance, emitting a focused beam. He pulled the dragon tighter, whispering, "Stay still." The beam swept across the rocks, then flickered out. A long silence followed before the machines drifted away toward the ruins. Only then did Eric breathe again. He knew he couldn't stay. Whatever had built those drones was hunting this creature. And if they were tracking it, they might have already detected his presence. He packed quickly, wrapping the dragon in thermal fiber. Its tail coiled weakly around his arm, almost instinctively, as if it trusted him now. The faint hum in the air followed them as he stepped outside. The storm had cleared, revealing a night sky bruised with purple and green auroras. Far above, beyond sight, the Dragon Queen watched from her hovering citadel, her taloned fingers tightening around a projection of the human's face. Her generals demanded action, their voices sharp and metallic through the chamber's resonance field. Retrieve the child. Eliminate the human. But the Queen's gaze softened. There was something in that man's eyes, something forgotten, dangerous, pure. On the ground, Eric trudged onward beneath the strange aurora, unaware of the vast intelligence observing him, unaware that with each step, the boundary between myth and man was dissolving. The small dragon's breathing steadied against his chest, glowing faintly with warmth, a pulse that synchronized, for the first time, with his own. The dawn came in streaks of copper and violet, the light bending strangely through the thin atmosphere. Eric moved across the ridge line, boots crunching against crystalline sand that glowed faintly under his steps. The dragon stirred within his coat, no longer burning with fever but emanating a steady warmth that pulsed like the beat of a small reactor. Each breath it took left faint motes of luminous dust in the air, scattering behind them like a comet's trail. He didn't know what world this creature came from, but its very presence felt like a fragment of something divine, or dangerous. He stopped to rest beside a twisted fragment of ship plating half buried in the ground. It was ancient, its hull etched with unfamiliar runes that shimmered when he brushed the dust away. His visor translated nothing, the symbols were alive, shifting. When he looked closer, they rearranged into a shape he somehow recognized, an eye, watching. A chill slid through him. He turned away, hoisting the dragon higher, and nearly collided with a figure standing a few paces ahead. She wore a long, dark cloak that shimmered faintly with embedded circuitry, like a fabric spun from starlight. Her face was mostly hidden, but her eyes, golden and deep as solar fire, met his without fear. "You should not be here," she said softly. Her voice had a resonance that seemed to vibrate inside his bones. Eric reached instinctively for the tool at his belt, a compact plasma cutter, though he didn't raise it. "I'm just trying to help this creature," he said. "It's dying." Her gaze flickered toward the bundle in his arms, and for a heartbeat, something vast and sorrowful moved behind her expression. "It is not dying," she whispered. "It is changing." He frowned. "You know what it is." "I know what she is," the woman corrected, stepping closer. "And what you are doing will cost you more than you understand." The wind lifted her cloak then, revealing glimpses of armor beneath, smooth, organic, and faintly iridescent, like dragon scale molded to a human form. Eric hesitated. "Who are you?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached out, her gloved hand brushing the air near the dragon's head. The creature shivered, responding with a faint hum, and a ripple of light passed through her body, as if the two shared a frequency. The woman's eyes softened, the tension in her face loosening for just a moment. "She trusts you," she murmured, almost to herself. They traveled together in uneasy silence. The terrain shifted from glass plains to fields of obsidian spires jutting from the ground like petrified lightning. Strange drones floated between them, scanning the horizon. The woman guided Eric with quiet precision, always knowing when to hide, when to move. When he asked her name, she only said, "Call me Sarai." That night, by the glow of bioluminescent stones, Eric tried to understand her. "You're not human, are you?" he asked. She met his gaze, unblinking. "No," she said at last. "But I was once curious about them." Then she looked toward the dragon, her expression unreadable. "Now I must learn if my curiosity was a mistake." The silence between them grew thick with unspoken truths. Above, a vast shadow moved across the stars, the Queen's vessel descending lower into the atmosphere. Sarai turned her face away, hiding the faint shimmer of tears that caught the light, and whispered to the wind, "Forgive me, my child." The wind of Kalis changed as they crossed into the canyon fields, colder, sharper, filled with whispers that weren't merely sound but memory. Static murmurs rippled across the air, fragments of lost transmissions looping endlessly. Eric followed Sarai through the mist that rolled from the fractured ground, his steps echoing between cliffs that seemed carved not by nature but by some colossal machine. The dragon rested against his chest, its scales now pulsing in rhythm with the strange hum around them. Occasionally it would twitch, releasing faint bursts of light that illuminated ancient symbols carved into the stone, spirals and eyes, star maps twisted into living equations. "Why do these walls glow?" Eric asked. Sarai paused. "Because this place remembers. The dragons used to breathe here, their energy etched itself into everything it touched. What you see are their memories, recorded in matter." She turned toward him, her face half lit by the blue shimmer of the canyon. "You walk through the bones of their history." A low tremor rumbled beneath their feet. Eric steadied himself against the wall as loose fragments of glowing rock drifted upward instead of falling, defying gravity for a moment before dissolving into fine dust. The air tasted of ozone and iron. "This planet," he said, "it's alive, isn't it?" "Alive," Sarai echoed, though her voice carried a weight of sorrow. "And dying." The dragon stirred, opening its eyes for the first time since morning. It looked directly at her, and for a fleeting second, its expression was almost human, pleading, questioning. Sarai reached out, placing her hand over its heart. A pulse of white light bridged them. The canyon walls answered with a distant, resonant tone. Eric watched as veins of light ran beneath her skin, mapping themselves like circuitry. Her disguise faltered, for an instant, scales shimmered at her throat, vanishing as quickly as they appeared. "What are you?" he whispered. She withdrew her hand slowly. "Something you were never meant to meet." Before he could ask more, a piercing sound split the air. Drones, dozens of them, descended like metallic locusts, their rotors slicing through the fog. Red beams swept across the canyon. Sarai moved faster than any human, her cloak flaring like liquid armor as she drew from her wrist a blade of compressed plasma. The first drone exploded in a burst of green flame. Eric ducked behind a rock, shielding the dragon as shards of molten metal rained down. When the last drone fell, silence reclaimed the canyon. Sarai's breathing was steady, but her eyes betrayed something raw. "They're tracking her energy," she said, nodding to the dragon. "We can't stay hidden for long." Eric stared at her, chest heaving. "You're protecting it too." "Why?" Sarai hesitated, then spoke softly, her words carried by the charged wind. "Because she is the last of the pure line, my daughter." Eric froze. The pieces began to align in his mind, the power, the secrecy, the strange reverence. "Then you're..." She cut him off, voice trembling just slightly. Yes. But if she dies, the line ends with me. Her eyes flicked to the horizon, where the faint glow of the Queen's ship loomed like a new dawn. And with it, every dragon's future. The dragon pressed weakly against Eric's chest, its breath syncing with his. The pulse beneath his skin began to hum with the same rhythm. In that quiet, dangerous stillness, he realized something terrifying and sacred. The bond between them was no longer one of chance. The planet itself had chosen him. They reached the edge of the canyon just as the second storm began to rise, not a natural one, but a tempest born of machines. The sky flickered with crimson fissures, each pulse revealing the silhouette of something vast descending through the clouds. Eric shielded his eyes as the pressure shifted, the air folding in on itself. Gravity fluctuated for a heartbeat, lifting stones and sand before releasing them again. Sarai stood motionless, her cloak rippling with static, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "She's here," she murmured. Eric followed her gaze. A massive construct hung in the heavens, shaped like a crescent forged from silver flame, the Dragon Queen's vessel. Its surface shimmered with organic patterns, like skin over living metal, and its engines pulsed in a rhythm that felt disturbingly biological. Lightning coursed between its spires as smaller crafts spiraled outward, deploying soldiers in crystalline armor. Their movements were graceful, almost ceremonial, as they formed a perimeter around the valley. Sarai turned to him, voice low but unshakable. "When they land, they will kill you for what you carry." Eric tightened his hold on the small dragon, now awake and trembling with light. "Then tell them the truth. Tell them I'm not their enemy." "They won't listen," she said bitterly. "They obey me, but they no longer hear me. They follow fear, not faith." A crack split the air as one of the landing pods touched down. The impact sent waves of glowing dust across the rocks. Figures emerged, draconic soldiers with faces obscured by mirrored helms, weapons humming with plasma energy. Eric stepped forward before Sarai could stop him. "If I die," he said quietly, "she dies with me." The soldiers raised their weapons. Then, before they could fire, Sarai's voice cut through the chaos, a sound not of speech but command, resonant and absolute. The air trembled. The soldiers froze mid-motion as if time itself had hesitated. Her cloak dissolved into light, revealing her true form, wings unfurling in radiant arcs, eyes blazing like twin suns. Eric fell back, blinded by the brilliance. The soldiers knelt instantly, their weapons lowered. Above them, the Queen's ship adjusted its orbit, a low thrumming vibrating through the planet's core. Sarai turned toward him, or rather, toward them. The dragon in his arms rose weakly, its body now translucent, veins glowing with the same light as hers. "You carried my child," Sarai said softly, voice trembling with something between sorrow and gratitude. "You kept her alive when even we could not." Eric's throat tightened. "You could have told me." "You would not have believed," she replied. "No human ever does, until it's too late." She lifted her hand and touched his chest. The mark where the dragon's light had burned him began to spread, branching into luminous patterns beneath his skin. "This bond cannot be undone. Her life is tied to yours now." Above them, the Queen's vessel dimmed, its energy sinking with the pulse between man and dragon. The young creature looked up at its mother and released a soft, harmonic cry, a sound that rippled through the air like a song. For the first time in centuries, Sarai, the Dragon Queen, smiled. "Then perhaps," she whispered, "it is not too late for either of our kinds." As the storm broke, light and ash swirled together across the sky, erasing the boundary between heaven and earth. Eric stood beneath it all, a human bearing the fire of dragons, as the old world began to fall away. The sky above Kalis no longer burned. The storm clouds dissolved into shimmering light, leaving behind a strange calm that felt almost sacred. The Dragon Queen's vessel hovered silently above the horizon, its engines now subdued, resonating in harmony with the living pulse of the planet. Eric stood on the ridge, the wind carrying faint traces of metallic ash and ozone, watching as the small dragon circled above him for the first time under its own strength. Its wings carved golden arcs across the air, scattering luminescent dust that shimmered like falling stars. Sarai, the queen, stood beside him, her form more human now, her armor faded into a robe of soft light. "She will survive," she said quietly. "The sickness was not decay, but transformation. The storms you crossed, they completed what she was meant to become." Eric's gaze remained on the horizon. "And me?" She studied him for a long moment. Beneath his skin, faint threads of luminescence still glowed, tracing his veins like constellations. "You carry a bond that cannot be broken. Her life and yours are woven through the same current now. When she breathes, you will feel it. When she soars, you will dream of the sky." He exhaled, the truth settling into him with both awe and weight. "Then I'll carry her memory wherever I go." The queen smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried centuries of loss and newfound hope. "Then humanity has given us more than we ever imagined." She lifted her hand, and the massive ship above responded, its great engines bending the light around them. "My people will leave this world for a time. We have much to remember and much to unlearn. But the bond you forged will remain. It will remind us of what we once were, and what we might become again." The young dragon landed beside Eric, pressing its head gently against his chest. The warmth that flowed through him was unlike anything he had felt, a mixture of gratitude, farewell, and something that might have been love. Its eyes, mirrors of the queen's own, reflected the human in front of it as though trying to memorize every line of his face. Then, with a single beat of its wings, it rose skyward, following its mother toward the brightening horizon. Eric watched until both became silhouettes swallowed by the light. The hum beneath his skin dimmed but did not fade. Around him, the wasteland that had once groaned with decay now shimmered faintly, the broken crust of Kalis healing, its storms dissolving into quiet air. He felt the planet's pulse again, steady and alive. He turned and began walking back toward the ruins, the faint trail of his footprints glowing briefly before fading into dust. Behind him, a low tremor rolled through the ground. Not destruction, but rebirth. Far above, as the queen's vessel vanished into the clouds, her voice brushed against his mind one last time, soft as memory. "Remember, human, the smallest act of mercy can rewrite the stars." Eric smiled, the wind cold against his face but his heart strangely warm. The sky stretched endless and clean above him, a world reborn from ruin, a bond between species sealed not in blood, but in compassion. And somewhere beyond that light, dragons soared again.